time. Hello. Here with former Sheriff, LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who is actually now running for Supervisor. And it's kind of a very cohesive story here, and I'm gonna have Alex probably explain it in his own words why he's running for Supervisor. I'm so excited to see you. It's been, a few months since I saw you at Casey's Fixin' Fidos, and I know that was just after the election. But now we're actually in the next election season and things are heating up, and you got two opponents, which we'll get to. But Alex, tell the audience who you are and why you're running.
Well, I retired after 36 years on the Sheriff's Department. The last 4 were as Sheriff. And having been Sheriff for 4 years, I got to see how the Board of Supervisors works. And I'm happily retired with my wife. We both enjoy a good pension. We could just walk away and say, we're done, peace out. Mm-hmm. But knowing the condition the county is right now, with homelessness, with crime, with corruption, with so many things that are going bad, we're in a downward, what they call a doom loop in LA County. And I couldn't in good conscience just walk away and say, you guys figure it out. Mm-hmm. I still have a lot of years left where I can contribute and reform county government so it actually serves the needs of the people instead of politicians.
And you of all people really demonstrated that in your tenure, and you're actually, when Peter called me about this, I was like, absolutely. I would love to sit down and talk with Alex because he's one of the few, I don't even really consider you a politician, but someone in that space of being an elected official that actually did something in his tenure and fought back against the status quo, which we've talked about before, the homeless industrial complex, all these things that you kind of mentioned. We're gonna hone in a little bit on some of these topics you mentioned, like the crime. But first of all, it's been, how many years since you've left office now?
December of 22.
So
a year and a month.
And in just 13 months, I have seen crime spike. I have seen things get worse in LA County. In your words, Alex, what is the state of LA County right now?
It's on its deathbed. It has a faint pulse and it can be revived, but it's going to require massive intervention and pretty much recognition from every elected official that we can't continue business as usual. We're harming the county, we're harming the city of LA. And every decision they're making now on the homeless front, on the crime front, is actually making matters worse, not better. And people are leaving. Look at we got the flight out of LA, and the people that are leaving are the people that are high income earners, the highly educated, the people with capital that can actually generate jobs and generate businesses. Those are ones that leave into greener pastures.
Where are they going now?
They're going to places that are more tax friendly. A lot of them are going to Nevada. Marc, prime example. He just picked up, moved to Nevada. A lot of other A-listers in that entertainment industry have gone there. A lot of the industry people going to Texas, going to Florida, other prime destinations, Arizona, looking for a better deal in terms of taxes because we keep, we'll just tax and we'll keep increasing taxation and expand public services, but all you're doing is creating a bigger net. People are dependent on the government largesse, and they're not working, and that's what's really dragging everything down.
Absolutely, and you saw this as sheriff, right? You saw a lot of where dollars are going, allocated by Board of Supervisors, including your department. The sheriff gets funded by the Board of Supervisors. So what did you see during your tenure that alerted you on something's wrong here, and why are you now running for this position on the Board of Supervisors?
Well, at the start of the pandemic, I was the director of emergency management for the entire county. And that was a job I had as sheriff. So did Sheriff McDonald, going back Scott, Baca, Pinches before. And it made sense because we ran the largest sheriff's department in the nation. And most of the issues that involve emergency management usually involves law enforcement and fire. So it was a natural until I showed up. Then all of a sudden we can't have that. And at the start of the pandemic, the board used the excuse of the Woolsey fire, the response to the Woolsey fire. They had more to do with actually the fire department than sheriff's department. they created a little story, a little narrative that they paid for it. Oh, and then somehow out of that narrative about the Woolsey fire, we got to replace the current sheriff that had nothing to do with Woolsey fire. I was retired when it happened. And that was their excuse. But what they wanted is they wanted to have someone they could control in the pandemic. And so as soon as the pandemic started, they removed me as a director of emergency management, and then they appointed the CEO, who was an accountant, to be the director of emergency management. You know, how much sense that makes, right? And it went downhill from there. That was one decision after another during the pandemic that made no sense, wasn't based on science. And the odd thing was the county was in a race to be first in front of the cameras to beat the governor in any declaration of emergency, any type of shutdowns or restrictions or mask mandates, and later on the vaccine. It was all a race to beat the governor, to be first, to declare, oh, we did this first. And how about get it right instead of running to be the first one to do it? That never entered their mind. And they decided this whole thing about essential and non-essential businesses, they decided that on their own. No science behind it. Not recognize that every single job is essential to whoever works it because it puts food on their table. How can that not be essential? So they were picking winners and losers based on politics, and the big box retail outlets did wonderful. The mom and pops were destroyed, especially in restaurants and things that have inventories that spoil. Those are the ones that really lost out the most. And they never apologized, never recognized, acknowledged it. Where was the study commissioned by the board to examine their response to the pandemic? See, they commissioned a study about the Woolsey fire to examine first responders. Right. But now, since they were in charge of the pandemic response, where's this big report about how they did during the pandemic? We don't need to talk about that.
No transparency.
Oh, no. Not important anymore.
You hone in on a really important point, which is the promotion of mediocrity. And I see this a lot, especially in the establishment politics, where you will promote people that don't threaten you. This idea of course, they will follow, blindly and not actually focus on the job in front of them, like you said. I know that in your tenure as sheriff, you took meritocracy pretty seriously. Can you tell us a little bit about how a true professional, a true leader does things in terms of promotion?
One is you're promoting people that you believe can replace you. So you have to do the exact opposite. You have to seek the most squared away qualified people. So what we did is, when I took office, the department always suffered from cronyism and nepotism. I mean, notorious. The good old boy network. And that is the only way you advanced in your career. And of course, for someone like me, as a male Latino, educated, more educated than pretty much the entire department, well, we can't have that in the higher ranks. So you have to stay as a lieutenant and be very thankful that we allowed you to promote to the rank of lieutenant and go away quietly. That was their attitude. In fact, under McDonald, 3 times I tried to interview for a captain spot. 3 spots that I picked that I would be competitive based on my history on the department. I couldn't even get an interview. Nothing.
Wow.
Every door was closed. So as sheriff, my goal was to do the exact opposite. I wanted to open every single door to every single lieutenant so they have a chance to compete for all these captain spots, especially in patrol, custody, court services, all the spots where you should see that transition, where people are getting a chance to be exposed in management positions and then sink or swim. If they make a good, have a good history in that, well, then they get bumped up to commander. And so we're building up a leadership core, a pool, and we advance them, by generation. And that's what we were doing until, of course,
the plug was pulled. Yeah. And there's a clear compare and contrast here, right? Because I think during your term, we really saw that the LA County Sheriff was doing great things. Of course, I'm going to plug CAC, getting the community involved. You, in your own way, was promoting community leaders to liaison with and actually get to the communities and get to what's going on. If there's any crime, if there's anything that you need to be alerted, you had eyes and ears everywhere because of promoting good leaders, right?
Well, that's the whole point, because the communities themselves need to be organized to be effective. and be in the eyes and ears of law enforcement, one, in times of emergency like the pandemic. All the food drives that the Civilian Advisory Council did, I mean, they did countless. The vaccine clinics, when we paired up with certain health providers with the vaccine. And this is, again, it's about leadership, because the county had set up these mobile vaccine clinics in Dodger Stadium. So all the Teslas and all the Mercedes-Benz and all the high-end sports cars were pulling up, and rich people were getting their vaccine. But Abuelita, stuck in an apartment down in East LA or South Central,
Had no access.
Had no access, wasn't mobile, wasn't wired, had no access to it. I said, wait a minute, why shouldn't the vaccine be distributed based on the highest mortality rates, based on the COVID, on positivity? It should be by zip code. So we switched to zip code, and I kid you not, within a day, the governor announced, "Oh, we're going to start doing it by zip code." Like, wow, really?
Yeah. Did you get any credit for that? Probably not, right?
No, of course not. And we don't do things to get credit.
Yes.
We just do things because it's the right thing to do.
And it's the most efficient way to do, and it's gets to the most people.
Yes, so we set up a clinic, 90022 in the heart of East LA. That was the very first one. And then from there, all of a sudden, everything got retooled. And then we did Operation Homebound, where we went into the riverbeds, into the far corners where the homeless encampments. And we had the one shot, remember the one shot vaccine? That's the one we were administering to the homeless. And we called it Operation Homebound because there were senior citizens, the mentally, physically disabled that are not able to leave their home. And how do they get vaccinated? Because we created Operation Homebound. And we even went so far as we had about 26 licensed paramedics on the department that are part of the SWAT team. And they could do it, and they did it for the department. But we said, wait a minute, we have over 200 EMTs. They could administer a shot if we change the California regulations. So we wrote to the governor and said, hey, this is an emergency. We have 200 plus EMTs that could administer shots. Can you change the requirement? He did. He did something good. And with that, then now we have over 200 people who can administer vaccines. And we just spread out everywhere like crazy. And it worked because we got a lot of people vaccinated.
So thank you for painting a picture of an effective rollout. Now, at the same time, was the Board of Supervisors doing any of the things that you implemented in that CAC?
No.
It's almost like you were doing their job, right?
Pretty much, because everything I did, then a week later they'd do it. Like identical. Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. And it was kind of comical and sad because they never asked. Like when Barbara Ferrer, the public health director, who was not a real medical doctor, she said, well, we're gonna do these health orders, and they're gonna be enforced by law enforcement, and this is what it's gonna be. Like with the mask mandates and all those things. Never bothered picking up the phone and calling law enforcement, myself, and say, how would this be enforced? Can it be enforced? All the important questions when you're going to create public policy. No, she thought she was Moses coming down from the mountains with the tablets. And of course, they weren't enforced. It was by voluntarily people decided to follow the lead. But they did something very, very bad as a result of the mask mandate, the vaccine mandate. The science was not there. It was not there. And then we fast forward to today, we realize all of that we put everybody through for something that wasn't the threat. Now imagine when we have a real threat that requires us to do something. You've already built up resistance and resentment in the entire community because, you cried wolf. When you shouldn't have.
So how are you going to prevent that if elected to the supervisors and dealing with a lot of these messiah types, right? Like that will not consult experts like law enforcement, like community leaders that want to operate on their own silo. How are you going to affect, this line of critical thinking and also expertise partnership with the community?
Well, we need to have evidence-based decision-making, fact-based decision-making.
That's rare these days.
Very rare. And here's the Sheriff's Department. I did not enforce a vaccine mandate for my employees. The board lost their mind. Oh my God, how dare you? And we followed the same process that the president followed, that the governor followed, You take the jab, or you get weekly testing. I think that's a fair accommodation.
Right.
Federal government did it, state government did it, and how dare the sheriff do it at the county level? And so they fought tooth and nail. It turns out they had a vested interest with Fulgent Genetics. It was running the testing and all that stuff. But we had 10,000 employees who were vaccinated. We had 6,000 plus who were unvaccinated. We knew the positivity rate of both, something that the CDC never released publicly. And guess what the difference was?
What?
3.4% versus 3.9%. So all of that hue and cry that, oh my God, you're exposing people, they're dying.
Statistically insignificant.
0.5%.
Crazy.
Which meant that to prevent, the vaccine was not preventing people from spreading the disease to other people. The one thing it was good at was minimizing the symptoms of the person, especially if comorbidity issues and all that. It had a noticeable difference in the outcome. But in terms of the positivity rate, statistically insignificant.
Amazing. And thanks for looking at data. That's something I hope they bring to the supervisors, the board of supervisors. But I want to ask you about the dynamics should you get elected to that position. Mm-hmm. You're going to be working with four, because it's a board of supervisors of 5. You will be one of 5. How is it that when your opinion is the minority, that you're going to get things done and get things accomplished with people that are maybe in varying levels adversarial to truth, adversarial to progress and efficiency?
Well, great question. One thing is my sheer presence there, not that I'm anything out of this world, anything, just the fact that the presence of someone who will do the right thing, they're in panic mode right now. They are literally in panic mode because they can't even think of the concept of someone like me sitting among those 5. Because I'm going to ask the hard questions. Here's a real good example. The Board of Supervisors all belong on the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the MTA. And they had this weird idea that, hey, we're going to get rid of all the cops, we're going to create our own police department, and we're going to hire more ambassadors and less cops, and everybody's going to sing Kumbaya and be happy because passengers hate cops. Their own survey says the exact opposite, that they paid for it, but they don't listen to it. And they did this proposal about the new MTA PD, as if we don't remember the RTD PD. You know, those of us are old enough. And no one asked a single question of the CEO, Stephanie Wiggins, or this Osborne lady who there's whatever public safety. And they talk about multi-layered ecosystems for safety, and oh my God, none of it is driven by reality at all. It is all far left progressive fairy tale. There's no relation to reality. How come no one asked the obvious questions? I'd be grilling her and put her on the hot seat as I can as a member of the MTA Board of Directors. They don't want that at all, because once you basically pull the curtain back, like the little dog in Wizard of Oz, and there was a man pulling all the levers, that's what I represent getting on the Board of Supervisors. I will pull back every single curtain. I don't care who's behind it. If they're harming the public, they're defrauding the public, the taxpayers, they need to be exposed, they need to be brought to the light of day and sanitized. And that is the power. Even one person on the board can make a huge difference, because now they have to change their operation. Because remember, all of the dirty deeds that the county does, they talk among themselves. They violate the Brown Act, like it doesn't exist. Because all of a sudden they show up on the days on Tuesday mornings and everyone's in agreement 5-0 on everything. And there's a little back and forth, but it's all for show.
Yeah. On the big things,
they've already made their decision way ahead of time.
Right.
If people talk on public comment period, they don't listen to them. They're playing games on their phone and they're chit-chatting and having a good time with their staff, and they could care less what the public says. I actually want to know, one, why are we doing these things Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning instead of Wednesday at 6 at night when working people can attend? Because the only people in the audience, you're activists that don't work, or you're retired. That's it. And it's the same people. Out of a county of 10 million, you got the same 2 or 3 dozen activist gadflies, and that's what they think is public, represents the public. No, They need to go on the road, and they need to be visible, and they need to do it at night.
Yes, no accountability there. So what would be your give me three of your top priorities going in, and what would you like to see change? And maybe it may even be unrealistic, but one can dream, right? But if you got three things you could accomplish with your term as supervisor, what would they be?
Number one, tear down Men's Central Jail and build in its place the mental health treatment center that should have been done in 2019. Now it's 2024, we still have the same need, but now it's going to cost us twice as much, and we're going to have to bite the bullet. That's got to be number one. Same thing with LA County Medical Center, USC, that sits empty. They created this plan, this god-awful plan that's basically a developer's, dream, where they're all going to do these wonderful little things, and sports complex and theaters, and we need psychiatric beds, period. I see that big elephant, north of the 10 freeway. For me, that's about 2,000 beds that we could use. That's 2,000 people we can get off the streets that went around chasing buses and howling at the moon and trying to set people on fire. Yeah, those people, we need to put them somewhere where they don't harm anybody or don't harm themselves. The care court thing, great idea in theory. In practice, is meaningless because we have nowhere to put people once we got them officially under conservatorship. Okay? Same thing with St. Vincent Medical Center. Got to do the same thing. Sits empty. Entire hospital ready to go, sitting empty, while we have people dying on the street. These are obvious things that need to happen. Number two, I want to get rid of the Civilian Oversight Commission in its entirety. I want to create a Criminal Justice Oversight Commission that covers the district attorney, the sheriff, and probation, all three. And I want the 9 picked by the sheriff, the DA, and the board. So there's a division of power, and you don't have one political body picking everything to beat up on another elected official. Because right now the COC is worthless. It's just a weapon to fight a proxy war against the sheriff. And now that you have a new sheriff, all of a sudden they've gone quiet. Have you noticed?
Yes.
Remember, deputy gangs were an existential crisis. Oh my God, the crisis of the 21st century. And as soon as Luna took over, crickets. Same thing with the press. Did the exact same thing. But when I was in office, every day was, oh my God this, oh my God that. It's the same department, the same people, the same policies. Nothing changed. Just a person making decisions changed. And what decisions I made that were bad? None. They were all for the advancing the public's interest. That'd be number two. Is that. Number three, a governance model for nonprofits, because I want to dismantle the homeless industrial complex. And I want to have a governance model where the public sees where all the money goes when we award grants to nonprofits. Because right now the nonprofits are very profitable. And we need to end that.
Very similar to the stuff we were talking about when you were still sheriff. Mm-hmm. I think a couple of years ago, we sat down and talked. I'm so glad to see someone like you being consistent, because these are things that you feel very strongly about for the betterment of the county. And here you are sticking true to your goal. It's just going to be in a different venue. Instead of being sheriff, you're going to be a supervisor, one of the board of supervisors. Do you think you can accomplish these goals better as a supervisor, or do you think that you can better accomplish these as a sheriff?
Well, these type of goals require legislative action. So the role of sheriff is not as suitable as the role of supervisor is. Now, we're hoping that Clint Carlton succeeds in District 2, and it only takes 2 votes to get an agenda item. And I plan on, Lord willing, I become supervisor. I plan on putting a lot of agenda items that advances the public's interest. Not these lengthy virtue signaling, absolutely nonsense things that mean nothing, but makes themselves feel better about themselves, or hey, look at me, look what we're doing. None of that, no. Mm-hmm. I want to have the nuts and bolts of county government working to advance the public's interest instead of wasting money. Just think of the size of county government. The budget is bigger than the budget of 42 states.
Wow.
Just put that in perspective. But 42 states with a governor, state legislator, both parties fighting back and forth. Current board, you got 4.5 ultra far left progressives, you got half of 1 conservative.
Yeah.
Because
Barger.
Barger, she kind of depending on what day of the week it is, she's Democrat
Yeah.
or Republican.
Yes.
And we need to actually have balancing it. Remember, before Mark Riley Thomas showed up at the board, you had somewhat of a 2-3 split. You had Don Kanabe, you had Mike Antonovich, Ed Edelman, and you had Gloria Molina on one side, or Yaroslavsky, but you had somewhat of a back and forth.
Balance.
And there was a balance where the decisions of the board pretty much reflected a normal center point that propelled us forward in a very fiscally prudent manner. But once MRT came and hey, come on guys, the going's good, and then all of a sudden you have a super majority of far left progressives who have no concern about the budget, no fiduciary responsibility, no sense of fiscal restraint, and they just want to throw money by the truckload everywhere to make themselves look better. I mean, look at Janice Hahn. She runs around with these big oversized checks with her name on them. Hey, here's a check of $10,000. Here's $200,000. Here, look at me. She makes a selfie, puts it on her social media. She's trying to buy votes.
Oh yeah.
And that's all it is. And it's the taxpayers' money. It's not her money.
That is, we actually talked about this before you came, is how is it when the population is so checked out, is so not understanding of the fact that it's their tax money that is getting squandered unnecessarily, that there's no care, that really a lot of it just comes to being easily bought by virtue signaling, by Janice's big checks, things like that, or what the governor's doing, and what the one party in power likes to do is just to buy influence, and everything's very shallow. It's we're having a deep conversation here about solutions, and solutions are a little more complex. They require thought, but they also require people to care. How is it with these people that do not care, that are the voters, and many of them are being shoved ballots in front of their faces and saying, just fill it out for so-and-so. Basically, people are buying votes left and right. How do you fight that?
Well, I think people are starting to respond when they see their pocketbook is being threatened. You go shop now, you got sticker shock. Fill up your car with $100 today in a supermarket versus $100 just 4 years ago, 8 years ago. And the difference in what you can walk out of the store with. But now you're doing this, you go into the cash register and you have someone else filling up their cart and walking out the door without paying it. That's the difference. And that is part of the problem, because when Janice Hahn first came on the board, the county budget was $29.9 billion. Now it's $46.7 billion.
50% more.
56% more budget, yet the county services being offered keep shrinking, but the budget gets bigger. Why? Because they're creating departments on paper that do absolutely nothing. Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department. You want to talk about an Orwellian department. Office of Diversion and Reentry, Alternatives to Incarceration, Alternative Emergency Response System. All these things that they're throwing money at exist on paper, and they can be converted into something that is tangible and real. And if you're creating an alternative emergency response, you're forcing the taxpayers to pay for the real emergency response, and the alternative emergency response is just for virtue signaling, because people, the crowd that votes in the far left hate law enforcement, and they're the source of all evils. Criminals are the victims, that whole routine. So now the taxpayer is stuck footing both bills.
Right.
In that, right? There's things we can do to improve how public safety works. By all means, let's do that. But I'm not going to force the taxpayers to pay for two different response systems. That is insane.
How are you getting this message out to the community, Alex, in the next, hopefully it will just be a month and a half, and you hit over 50%. That's what we're hoping for. But if not, could be a long slog all the way to November. What's your plan?
Well, one thing I know for sure is that Han is dodging. She's on the run. She's campaigning from her basement. Doesn't do public appearances where people may ask her questions, heaven forbid. We had a debate last Wednesday, and she didn't show up. She's had prior commitments. Oh, so special. And of course, this thing was known for like 2 months. And unless she was attending her own funeral or her own wake, she should have been at the debate. And when you don't debate, you basically relinquish, any authority you have a legitimacy to your position. You're just hiding behind the machine, the county, Democratic Party machine, to try to hold on to your job. So who are you beholden to? Democratic Party machine. You're not beholden to the people. And every single elected official needs to be beholden to the people. I did 7 debates in the primary, and I was debating 8-1, 8 people beating me up, and I still attended those debates because I thought it was important that people could hear the truth. I didn't hide away, didn't shy from anything. I never do. And if we get past the primary, I don't see her making it to November because she can't hide. She won't debate, and that's a simple question. Are you better off today than you were 8 years ago? Ask anybody. Then the answer is she's got to go.
But a lot of these politicians, like Janice Hahn, have learned from our president's playbook. The president, during the COVID pandemic, did not campaign, and he still won the election.
Well,
Janice is counting on that, I believe.
Well, Luna, he campaigned from the basement too.
True.
But other people were doing all the campaigning for him. They weaponized county government against me.
Mm-hmm.
So you had all these different entities bashing the sheriff. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, that. But now, when all the dust is settled,
Silence.
Where's all these crises? Do you realize I had 2 full civil grand juries impaneled to try to find something? They came up empty-handed. I had the state attorney general on Xavier Becerra's last day in office before he went to Washington. He granted the Board of Supervisors their request to please do a pattern and practice investigation of the sheriff. We know he's up to no good. And they've been at it now 3 years. What have they come up with? Nothing. The feds, FBI, I think they've looked into 1 or 2 things, done their inquiry, walked away, there's nothing here. Because we were doing...
You're clean.
Yeah. And first thing that Luna did when he took office, he eliminated the public corruption unit. Is there a more corrupt act than eliminating the public corruption unit? Because that was freaking out the board. Because we had the temerity to investigate Sheila Kuehl. And we weren't investigating her to pick on her, or a bully, like they say, oh my, he's abusing his authority. No. State constitution gives the sheriff the authority to investigate crime. That literally is the job of the sheriff, to investigate crime. And it's not, well, we pick and choose who we investigate because it's politically inconvenient. No. It's a one-size-fits-all situation. It's equal protection under the law. And somehow she thought she was above the law, or members of the Oversight Commission, or the Inspector General. He thought he was above the law. And turns out, no, they were caught in things that are criminal in nature. They need to be held accountable one way or another. They're innocent until proven guilty. But when I was sheriff, I was guilty, and they just assumed I was guilty. And they didn't even bother with facts or evidence. So that now that we're looking back, we can see, man, what a collusion between so many entities.
It took you to be out of office to see the compare and contrast, right, of how they treated you and how they're treating Luna.
Well, we saw it actually when we took office because we were comparing the coverage from the LA Times and McDonald. Oh my God, was it a 180 in coverage? Because they barely mentioned him. I think they had like 30-something articles in the span of 4 years, and 64% were positive. And me, I racked up over 100 articles, and 90% were negative. It's the same organization. He had the same issues to deal with that I had.
But you dared to question.
Oh, I questioned. By all means.
You dared to question and push for a change from status quo.
Right. So then, leaving office, now looking at Luna, they're reverting back to the McDonald model. We won't ask any questions. Look, they even relieved of duty a captain, a commander, who got caught up in the prostitution or a sex trafficking deal. Yeah. Big scandal. LA Times, no coverage. Had that occurred on my watch, it would have been wall-to-wall coverage nonstop for weeks.
Wow.
That's the difference. And that's the scary part, because we depend, naively on the Times and, media outlets to just report. But they decide when to report and when not to report. And all they did was at one time They did one little blurb that he was relieved of duty about an investigation. No further details. They had all the information about it. And then when I was in office, they said unnamed department and sources, inside department. They'd have all these terminology to see where they got their sources from. But all of a sudden, all the sources ceased to exist conveniently, so they couldn't report anything else. So you had to go to the fringe outlets that were reporting the facts, but no one was picking them up.
Exactly.
But I mean, then the one time they wrote that one article on that character, he was promoted to captain under Sheriff Villanueva. But he was promoted to commander, his current position, under Sheriff Luna. That they couldn't admit that.
Blatant bias.
Yeah, it was embarrassing, really. And that's the type of coverage that does a disservice to people.
All of us that know all of this, media bias and, that question authority, really know you're a fighter for us. So, I thank you for that. And I'm so happy to support your candidacy and also to hear what you're doing. But I want to kind of shift it and make it a little more lighthearted. I think voters want to get to know you as a person. So I know, because I'm an animal lover, I'd have my pug here with me, but I'm traveling to New York tonight, so I can't, didn't bring him. But I know you have a very cute dog, a lab.
Yes.
His name
Simon.
is?
He's a result of a freak genetic experiment. They crisscrossed a kangaroo with a hummingbird. I got Simon. Don't know how they did it, but we have proof.
So he flutters like a hummingbird and jumps like a kangaroo.
He runs at you at 30 miles an hour straight at you, and he'll fly through the air. Then as he goes by you and through the air, he does a flyby, not a drive-by, flyby. Then he nibbles you on the shoulder, and he keeps going for no apparent reason. But he just has fun doing that. He's a lot of fun.
I wish he was here today because I just saw a picture of him. I think I met him one time. I'm just like, wow, he is so cute. I love labs. Mm-hmm. Is he your only?
Yeah, he's our only. Our original lab was Alvin, and he passed away in 2020. And so he came 5 months later. And Alvin was big. He was 100 pounds of fun. He was just a freight train and healthy. And then Alvin, when we first got him, he was a rescue. He was born in Utah, and a nonprofit that does medical alert dogs bought him, trained him to be a medical alert dog. And he passed obediency school, but he flunked the med alert school because he was too hyper. And so he flunked med school. And I could see that he was too hyper. So he bounced from shelter to shelter. And then friends of ours had him, and they were in an apartment, and a lab and apartment is not a good mix.
Yes.
And they asked for help, so we babysat him for a day, and that was it. So he's got to stay.
Oh, that's great. And so Simon, how old is he now?
He just turned 4.5 in June. So
hopefully you have many years with him.
Hopefully we can get him at least to our other dog. He lasted almost 13.
Wow. Must have been loved and spoiled.
Oh, rotten. Absolutely rotten.
And tell me a little bit about, especially now, I think you've been able to, after being retiring from the Sheriff's Department, have a little more time to do the things you love. What have you been doing?
Well, we did travel a bit. We went to Puerto Rico in December after I left office. We spent a week there. Then my son got married in Maui.
Congrats.
In March, so we went there. That was pretty cool. And then he had his wedding outdoors, destination wedding in this big fancy resort. And as he's getting married on this bluff overlooking the ocean, humpback whales started breaching.
How cool! Did you get pictures of that?
There are a few pictures. Awesome. Yeah. Right as he was doing the vows, you could hear it.
Right on time.
Yeah.
Right on cue.
Yeah, we paid for that.
Yeah, nice.
So that was pretty. And then we went to Montana, end of July. Because they have friends that own a cabin up there. They kept telling us, "Come on, you gotta come. It's great." And we were always so busy, we kept putting it off. We said, "Okay, now we got the time. We'll go." And Vivian, she just fell in love with Montana. That's a place where you could turn around 360. You won't find anything ugly. The whole place is gorgeous. That's why they call it, big sky country. They mean it. So, no, definitely Montana stole our hearts.
That's great. And you said you went to Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
Are you Puerto Rican? Is that your background? Okay.
Yeah, I lived in the island as a little kid.
Great. And then you came to California after that?
Well, from the island, I was in my second year of college, and that's when Ronald Reagan was president. He cut Pell Grants in half. So when you're living on Pell Grants, you lose half of your grant, that you're pretty much done. In those days, there wasn't like there was part-time jobs you could take to make up the difference. So I enlisted in the Air Force, and I wound up at Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino. And that was back in '83. So this is officially my 41st year.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service. I did not know that about you. And, thanks for, also supporting local businesses. I want to highlight this. This is actually a really cool location. What's your connection here with this Orchards Bar and Grill, barbecue and grill?
Well, the owners, Troy and Debbie Silva, good friends of ours. They've been huge supporters from the beginning. And Vivian, big animal lover, and they were into animal rescues and supporting animal charities. So fixing Fidos, and somehow along that, our paths crossed, and here we are.
I was there. Oh yeah, great this to have this reunion, and thank you, Debbie, for opening up this space for us to have this conversation. Any final words? Speak straight to the voters, and our audience is going to be our LA County residents here. What do you want to tell them?
Well, what I want to tell everyone who's listening to this is, this year 2024, everyone has the opportunity to change the course of county government. It's as simple as that. Change the course, because the path that we're on is a path of failure that's going to lead to more homelessness, more crime, more loss of personal safety, and more loss of businesses, economic opportunities. All of that's going to continue downhill if we keep the same people in charge. People have to understand, when you put bad politicians back in office, you're going to get bad outcomes. So we need to change the Board of Supervisors. And I'm asking for your vote for District 4. I'm supporting Clayton Carlton in District 2 for that race. And up north, Barker's up for re-election. Unfortunately, we didn't get good people to run against her. So she's actually probably going to wind up being the best of the bunch right now. Otherwise, you're going to have a solid 5 supermajority, hyper, ultra, far left progressives. And I'm trying to revive the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy. That was a party that represented everybody, dreamed big, met big challenges, existential threats, fought World War II, put a man on the moon, big stuff. And they got things done because they worked with Republicans of the day. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, every Friday, they sat together, had a drink, a beer, and they just laughed at everything that happened during the week. And they got big things done in their time. Even immigration reform, that was a bipartisan effort back in the 80s.
And there was a care, right, at that time, a care to do the right thing and a care to have positive results. I don't see that with today's politicians.
Because today's the entire political scenario is about, if I'm Team Blue, I got to defeat Team Red. If I'm Team Red, I got to defeat Team Blue. But what about the people? That becomes secondary in their pursuit of defeating the other side. No, we actually need Team Purple, where both colors come together, both parties come together, and hash out what you agree with, which is going to be more than what you disagree with. Imagine how far along we get.
Absolutely, and that's why I don't affiliate with any party. And I know you're still a registered Democrat.
Registered Democrat.
Great.
And I need to keep alive the Democratic Party. And I made this point many times. Like every commission the county appoints, every single person is a far left, ultra liberal progressive.
Not okay.
I want to hear the voice of ultra left progressives. And I want them to have a seat at the table. They just can't have every single seat at the table. That is the problem right now with county government. That is a problem with city government. That's the problem with the MTA.
State government.
And the state is the very same way, because the ultra supermajority Democratic Party in the state legislature, they just ignore the Republicans, and that's why we're in the shape we're in today. So folks, remember that. Don't vote by party, vote by the person, what they represent, what they're gonna, promise to do, and hold them to that promise. when I was elected, when I campaigned to be sheriff, I talked about body-worn cameras. I talked about ICE out of the jail. I talked about balancing the budget. I talked about making the department more inclusive and representative of the community, and we achieved all of those things. Usually, you get reelected and endorsed when you achieve everything you campaigned on, but I became the first person in elected history to get thrown out of office for actually doing what I campaigned on doing.
It's just a narrative changed and a certain agenda was getting pushed, and you were obviously
2020.
But yeah, make sure that you do vote, especially on these March 5th. Vote March 5th. The primary is very important because if Alex actually crosses the 50% threshold, he's in. He doesn't even have to be on the ballot in November.
And if you have seniors, you have family members that advanced age, don't allow anyone to fill out the ballot for them. Because what they're doing is they're harvesting their ballot. And they're going to vote. Trust me, if someone knocks on your door from the Democratic Socialists of America or SEIU 2050, one of those unions, kick them out of your property. Tell them, leave here, you're not welcome here.
You should know your vote. You should
Yes.
know who you're voting for. You should read your booklet and actually be very thoughtful, down to especially county positions such as sheriff, such as supervisor. I'm not for, anyone and everyone should vote, because if you do that and you're uninformed, you could put some very bad people in, and that's what's happening on a mass level.
Very true. And I'm gonna release my picks that I have, people that I've talked to and endorsed. And the list is short, but it's getting very interesting, because we're supporting Nick Wilson, Assembly District 52, out in, this is the San Bernardino, LA County border, Pomona, Claremont, Ontario.
For my offices.
Okay, in Chino. That's that one. And he's Republican. Natasha Serrano, which is Assembly District 56, which is right here. She's Republican. But also we're supporting Susan Collins, Democrat. And she's the district, I'm not sure which one it is, but it's where Howard Stern is incumbent.
Okay.
And he's one of those ultra far left super majority liberals that does not belong anywhere in public office. And we're supporting John McKinney for district attorney. He's Democrat as well.
I love John. What a great guy.
And who else? Anyone else that can't think off the top of my head. But we're going to have the list of the ones, and we have a good mixture of both Republicans and Democrats. And folks, do not vote party line.
Vote for the person.
Yeah, go for the person, what they're doing, or what they've done. If they haven't done anything, get rid of them.
And do your research, right?
Yes.
Your website or social media, can you please plug it, Alex?
Alex4supervisor.com.
Is that number 4 or FOR?
That's number 4. Alex4supervisor.com. That's number 4. On social media, on Facebook and Instagram, it's also Alex4Supervisor. And then but I have a second set of Facebook and Instagram, because every Wednesday at 11 I go live, and that's Sheriff Villanueva 33. And I've been doing that since I was in office.
33?
Yes.
What's that number?
33rd Sheriff.
Oh, there you go.
And that one, we have a good turnout every Wednesday. And we save them and we post them so you can see them online after. And we get thousands of people to watch our show every Wednesday.
Wonderful. Okay, so you got all those links. Thank you. Support Alex. Vote March 5th. And the District 4 cities, real quick, who is in, because you're not running in the whole county. Even though you will represent the whole county, you're going to represent a certain district. So
Yes.
Who are your voters in which cities?
We're sitting on the northeast corner of the 4th District. La Habra Heights is the last city. Then you have Whittier. Then you go down to Santa Fe Springs, Norwalk, La Mirada, Lakewood, Bellflower, Bell, and keep going. Oh, and Commerce, and I think Maywood, Huntington Park, and you keep going down to Torrance, Long Beach, San Pedro, Hawaiian Gardens, all the way till you get to the Palos Verdes Peninsula. Rancho Palos Verdes and Palos Verdes Estates. Those are so we're basically at the extreme corners of the district.
So do you have the entire Torrance, or is it just
Yes.
a portion? Okay,
Torrance
great,
as well.
great. Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. All right, Alex for Supervisor.
Yes.
alex.com and also at Alex for Supervisor on all the social media.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alex.
You got it.